Hi, this is Marta from Ruby Soup with Pearl Juice, and today I'm doing the Rapid Fire book tag. This is a tag that was originally created by Girl Reading, and I was requested to do this by Aliens, Clones, Airships. I'm going to leave both of their links down below. So basically, you go through a bunch of bookish questions, and then you try to give very quick answers. So no further ado, let's get started. So the first one is ebook or physical book. Physical book. I can't with ebook. Paperback or hardback. I prefer hardback, but it's really expensive, so I tend to mostly read paperback. Online or in-store book shopping. Well, I do a lot of online book shopping because my tastes are a little bit different than most of the bookstores around my home. So I would prefer to buy books in bookstores, but most of the time they don't quite have the stuff that I'm looking for, so I end up doing a lot of online shopping. Trilogies or series. Trilogies, I don't really like very, very long series, and even trilogies I often struggle to finish. Heroes or villains? I read a lot of literary fiction, which means that there's no clear heroes or villains in those books, and most of the time, even if those books have villains, it's really, really horrible people like Nazis or genociders or something like that, so I guess I'm gonna have to say heroes, but as I said, the kind of books I read, they don't really have either. A book you want everyone to read. The Deal Breaker by Edwin Gedundicut. This is a wonderful book that is a bunch of short stories that are connected with each other, and it talks about Haiti's modern history, and it has just unforgettable characters, and it's so heartbreaking and emotional. You just have to read it. It's such a masterpiece. Recommend an underrated book. Blue Pills, a positive love story. This is a graphic memoir about a man who falls in love with an HIV positive woman. I'm gonna leave the Goodreads link to that down below. The last book you finished. Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. This was a historical book, and I don't tend to read those, but this was actually really good. It talked a lot about class and gender, and it was very interesting. Weirdest thing you've used as a bookmark? I have actually used toilet paper as a bookmark, but it wasn't anything that was soiled, so don't be too grossed out. Used books, yes or no? Absolutely yes. Used books often come from thrift shops and charity shops here in Stockholm. So I buy a lot of used books because they're cheap and they're affordable. And not only that, but the money is going for a good cause. Top 3 favorite genres. Contemporary, magical realism, and dystopia. Borrow or buy? Buy because you get such little time to actually finish the book, and I'm a bit of a slower reader. Characters or plot? Really much depends on the book, but I tend to read more for plot than for characters. But if you have a if you have a really complex, just fascinating character, and we're just following their thought process and how they experience things, and you make it super fascinating, then that works really well too. But more often than not, plot. Long or short books? Short books. I don't like books that are 500 pages at all. I tend to, this is not a absolute 100% truth, but I often feel like when I read books that have been 500 pages that you could have easily cut out 100 pages and not really lost anything. Long or short chapters? Doesn't really matter, but I guess long chapters. Name the first 3 books you think of. The Trial by Franz Kafka, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and Dietland by Sarah Walker. Books that make you laugh or cry. I don't really cry in books, but I do tend to like sadder, more tragic stories, so books that make me cry. Our world or fictional worlds. When you read a lot of literary fiction or contemporary, those two things are actually quite similar, so maybe I would say fictional worlds just because everybody kind of has a very clear destination and somebody else is making your path for you, and that is it's kind of a terrifying idea, but also it's like, well, you do have your own, everybody does have their own purpose in a book, so maybe that. Audiobooks, yes or no? Oh, absolutely yes. I love audiobooks, but it has to be a really good narrator. I once was listening to one narrator where she was just butchering an Australian accent, and it was just cringeworthy, but more often than not, audiobooks are fantastic. Do you ever judge a book by its cover? Oh no, never. I tend to not really buy books spontaneously. I always read reviews or kind of look at recommendations before buying a book. And even if I buy a book spontaneously, the thing that usually gets my attention is the book's title. Book to movie or book to TV adaptations. TV adaptations, those just work a lot more better. And in fact, I kind of wish that instead of always making books into movies, then people would make miniseries instead. A movie or TV show you prefer to its book. I guess BBC's Jane Eyre. I thought that some of the subjects that it was trying to talk about in the book were made a little bit more clear in the TV show. And also a lot of the really offensive stuff, like Mr. Rochester doing Romani face and Jane Eyre making comments about Jewish people, that was all cut from the BBC, so not historically accurate, but still a lot more easier to watch. Series or standalones? Standalones. When you read a lot of literary fiction or a lot of contemporaries, then the one book often tells the whole story, and you don't really need anything added to the character's life or to the plot. There is a clear beginning and end to the character's story, so sequels are often not really needed. But I don't know, maybe if I read more genre, I would start to appreciate series more. So, those were my answers for the rapid fire book tag. Thank you again, Aliens, Clones, Airships, for tagging me. And I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, click the like button, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye!